Hey, what's going on, guys? FlynnMasters coming at you with another video, and today I'll be ranking every chef of Hell's Kitchen Young Guns. And man, if I thought season 13 was hard, this might be even harder. As while the cast as a whole is more likable and memorable than season 13, as individual chefs, like they pretty much all blend together, and there's just not much to say about a lot of them. So yeah, this will probably be a very short ranking. But let's get started with my least favorite chef of the season in Peyton. And again, he's obviously not vile or anything, but with the way he acted to some of the red team members when he got switched was pretty bad. You know, very Benjamin-esque in that light. So yeah, I mean, it's not much, obviously, but when there's virtually no villains this season, you know, and Peyton wasn't really booed as well, doesn't add much of good to the season, you know, that lands him at the bottom of my list. At number 17 is the first boot of the season in Ava. And yeah, all I can say is she's obviously insanely attractive, but that's just it. I don't know if she was really even here for the competition, honestly. I think she was more so here just to promote herself. So I'm glad that didn't go anywhere with her being the first boot. And her going home also gave us more of Matthew being a train wreck, which, as you'll see later on, was really fun. So, but yeah, really nothing of note for Ava. And on to another forgettable chef in Morgana. And all I remember about her is Ramsay calling her a baby face. I mean, I guess I felt bad she was at the brunt of some of Peyton's rage at times, and especially during elimination episode. You know, she seemed sweet enough, but, you know, just an all-time forgettable chef, in my opinion. On to another forgettable chef who was also a babyface in Victoria, and while I don't know why she wasn't called out for that like Morgana was, she obviously was she was a much better chef than Morgana and had a pretty decent run, but just had no personality whatsoever, which is why she's this low despite making it to the top 10. On to someone who was forgotten about due to everything that was going on outside of him, with that being Jay. And again, pretty much nothing noteworthy about Jay, other than being the one to go home on Chicken Gate despite working Garnish. I always thought that was funny. You know, seemed like a good guy, and at least was, you know, somewhat part of one of the most iconic nomination ceremonies ever. But so I guess that's something, I guess. And speaking of, the man who was most responsible for Chicken Gate was Alex. And again, that's the only reason why he's this high, as Chicken Gate is easily a top 5 nomination ceremony in the history of the show. But other than that, there's just not much of note, other than his facial expressions were pretty funny. It was an X of a list of the following season, so... but the mainly, thank goodness he provided us with Chicken Gate. On to one of the more forgettable late boots in Hell's Kitchen history, with that being Sam. And I mean, he was a great guy and a good chef who fought hard on this tough season, but just nothing noteworthy. And probably along with Fernando, the most forgettable 8th place finisher of all time. And it is mostly his pretty good run that lands him this high. On to many people's least favorite chef of the season, because let's be honest, he pretty much took someone else's spot who actually stood a chance in Hell's Kitchen. But I don't care. Matthew is arguably the worst chef in the history of the show. But he does get this season off to such a bang with his complete train wreck performance. Between serving little shit to Ramsay, using a thermometer during service, and just in general being so clueless and lost to the point where Ramsay didn't even give him a chance to plead his case, it all just makes for incredible TV. And while obviously it was just not fit to be on the season, or any season of Hell's Kitchen for that matter, it truly was like watching a train wreck unfold. These next two boots are very similar to each other, as they are the best of friends, which is cute, with number 10 being the earlier boot in Josie. And not only that, but she just wasn't as interesting as her partner. I mean, I guess her being a vegan shtick was pretty funny, but yeah, decent chef, a good friendship, you know, totally inoffensive all around. And speaking of, her best friend Emily lands here at number 9. And not only was Emily just more fun and bubbly personality, but a better chef all around, and an underrated super positive chef that always seems to be smiling no matter what. And while I will admit she did kind of come across as pretty cheesy at times, as does the season as a whole, she's still an overall good addition to the season. At number 8 is Keanu, who was an overall fine character, but what really puts her this high is her potential. Yeah, again, another chef who was taken out far too soon due to the Cook for Your Life challenge, and the fact that she lost out to boring Victoria, who, you know, again, like I said, was as plain as could be, and who went home the next episode, nonetheless, made it all that much worse. So yeah, one of the more interesting what-ifs in Hell's Kitchen history when it comes to the Cook for Your Life, which is why she lands relatively high here at number 8. At number 7 is someone who had an out-of-nowhere meltdown on par with Nelka, with that being Kevin. And again, nothing to note other than just how crazy his meltdown was, as he went from all intents and purposes seeming likely to get a black jacket to not even making it through the service. Just insane stuff. And is of course one of the more memorable moments this season, and memorable ejections in general. So yeah, I know I'm sounding like a broken record here, but while he doesn't add much this season, this moment alone basically puts him in the top 7. We finally have an interesting character to talk about now in Antonio, who of course had one of the best face turns of all time, as after being super annoying the first third of the season, and for sure seemed like one of the weakest links, he became super chill after switching to the red team, and damn near earned a black jacket. And I really thought about putting him higher despite his bad moments because at least it was something. But I definitely respect the five chefs above him just a bit more, despite Antonio objectively being better TV, even if it wasn't always for the best of reasons, which is why he lands just outside the top five at number 6. And now onto the top 5, and at number 5 is the runner-up of the season in Megan. And this is just flat out a respect ranking, as obviously Megan is not the most interesting character in the world, but she was a damn good chef, arguably the best chef of the season, and a very good finalist in the grand scheme of things. And of course, it is really funny that another chef named Megan Gill almost won this season. But again, definitely a respect ranking here that lands here in my top 5. At number 4 is a chef very similar to Megan, with that being Kaya, who is again arguably another candidate for best chef this season, but to me was just a bit better TV than Megan with her more blunt personality, which to be fair led to a weird obsession with Trenton down the stretch, but honestly I didn't mind it that much. I thought it was just, again, it was something. She was super passionate, which one could argue was her detriment in the end. But overall, I think Kaya was a very good addition to this season. On to a chef who a lot of people don't like, and that is Brynn. And I've said this before, this is why we need a true villain on each season of the show, because the fact that people hate Brynn is just so odd. Like, I think people just need someone to hate. Now, I'm not saying she's an awesome character or anything, but definitely one of the main characters and confessionalist of the season. So much so that I thought she was poised to be an early boot. But in the end, she proved me, and I'm sure a lot of people wrong, with a very good 4th place run. So maybe I'm putting her higher than I should due to her weird hate, but I think Brynn fits her role this season really well. At number 2 is the winner of the season in Trenton, the first male winner since Scott, which was always super interesting. And despite being a pretty boring winner, that's what makes Trenton interesting, at least in my eyes, as he was on par with Holly in terms of just like, not just quiet in the edit, but as a personality as a whole. Like, you just would not expect someone like that to win, which would tell you something, that he was just that dominant of a chef that he was still able to overcome it all and, win a very talented season. And he was such a sweet guy as well. A top 10, likely a top 10 winner than most people, especially to me, when ranking the winners. And so, because of all of that good stuff, he lands here at number 2. But without question, my favorite chef this season is Steve. And here's the thing, he doesn't stand out this season for being over the top character. Like many other chefs this season, he was quiet and reserved. But the fact that he was so reserved, but yet such a complete badass in the kitchen, like, he truly is an anomaly. Like the most dominant chefs, like Steve, end up getting main character syndrome. But Steve was never like that. He remained himself throughout the entire competition. And it's not only my favorite chef this season, but potentially top 10 favorite chef of mine of all time. So there you have it, guys. My ranking of every contestant from Hell's Kitchen Young Guns. I know I didn't have a lot to say, but I hope you guys still enjoyed it regardless. And be on the lookout for the final 2 videos of this series. And with all that said, take care everyone, and I'll see you next time.